Hey, you two, welcome back to the continuation of part two of the NFL football season preview. So, we have wrapped up the NFC South. We're going to move on to the second of four divisions on the NFC side of the NFL, and that would be arguably the best division from a season ago, at least not only on the NFC side entirely, but in the entire NFL. That would be the NFC North, featuring the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, and the Chicago Bears. So, to kick off this part of the series, we're going to move on to talk about the first place team from a season ago, and that would be the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions are coming off one of the most historic seasons ever in that franchise's history, only going 15-2. But we know some issues have come about. They've lost both their coordinators. They got a rough schedule, but could that mean a Super Bowl win? Let's go ahead and talk about the Detroit Lions. So, Dan Campbell is in the start of his fifth season there in Detroit. You would have not thought that that Detroit would have looked this good entering year five, given how they looked in the first parts of the Dan Campbell regime. Starting was I think 0-9 in 2021, and just looking absolutely god awful. But something was brewing, and this started 2 years ago when they went to the NFC Championship game. But then last season, of course, it came to a dud after having a historic season all around. We know the parts and pieces for their projected starts. It's going to be Jared Goff running the show at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery being in the backfield, Sam Laporta there at tight end, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, Tim Patrick. You got the parts and pieces. On top of that, you got Taylor Decker there, the all reliable left tackle there. You've got Frank Ragnow. You've got Penei Sewell. I mean, that offense has got all the parts and pieces. Then you couple that with the defense. Of course, Aiden Hudson did go out with that horrific knee injury a season ago, but they're saying he is he fully cleared the protocol to return, so he's back. You've got Anzalone, you got DJ Reader, you've got Brian Branch, you've got Kirby Joseph, you've got Terrion Arnold. I mean, you've got all the parts and pieces. You could not have asked for a better put together roster than Detroit has right now. All time record, though, very bleak. And also, their division records are very bleak, too, because they have had a sad history. Because literally, everything last year was a complete 360 as to what has happened to them prior. 606, 709, and 34 ties will be a 46.1% win percentage for the Detroit Lions all time. And they have a losing record against all the teams in the NFC North, at least the current NFC North. But that doesn't really seem to matter because this team is it's well put together. So now, using that team lineup, let's see how it compares to the schedule. So, we do know they lost their offensive coordinator. He went to Chicago, and the defensive coordinator went to the Jets. I think this is not to mention the schedule here is holy cow, it is difficult. It is by far in the top five in difficulty, but whew, they got the short end of the stick this year. Let's just start with the first half of the schedule before the week 8 bye week. Which, by the way, week 8 bye week is one of the best I have out there, in my personal opinion. Their first game, 425, the national doubleheader game on CBS at Green Bay. Wow. Then you play Chicago. That's like your maybe like one or the two, gimme games, maybe. But that'll be the rematch or the rematch with their offensive coordinator. Then you go to Baltimore on Monday night. Cool, that's a fun one. Then you get Cleveland. Who knows what Cleveland is? I mean, I think Cleveland's trash, but you get Cleveland. Then you gotta go to Cincinnati. Then you go to Kansas City. Then you gotta play the Bucs. Already right there, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff teams from a season ago, arguably 5 from the last 5 years, and then you throw in Cleveland and Chicago. Like, that's already a gauntlet as it is. But then, you hit the back half, which means you gotta play Washington, you gotta play Philly back-to-back weeks, both on the road. That's not fun. You gotta play Green Bay a second time. You'll get a rematch with the Rams from the divisional round 2 years ago. Then you throw in Pittsburgh while you're at it, and then throw in Minnesota again on Christmas. I mean, it's looking like, holy cow, what has Detroit signed themselves up for? But, and I say but, this Detroit team is scrappy. And I mean scrappy because they have shown this time and time again over the years. Of course, last season 15-2, they had the dud loss to the Washington Commanders in the divisional round at home. Over-under for them is 10.5 wins. I have the Detroit Lions being our Super Bowl champions for the first time in their franchise history. I think this is, when you think of all the factors, with the hardest schedule, arguably the hardest schedule in the top, at least in the top 5 of difficulty, with the parts they are missing on the offensive and the defensive side of the staffing, this seems like the perfect storm to me. So I do have the win Super Bowl. You'll see it down there in my projection. Third place in the NFC North. They will be a wild card team and will win the Super Bowl. They will be the first one since the Raiders did it in the 80s to get that job done. But I think Detroit is going to be on a mission because the way things ended last year, it's not going to be tolerated again. So I think Detroit is on a mission, and I have them win Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco over the Baltimore Ravens. All right, that was a lot, but it was a fun one. I always love talking about Detroit. I think Detroit is due to have a great season. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So, put my money on it. I'm going to take Detroit to win the Super Bowl. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the second place team, which was a complete resurrection story from a season ago, by talking about the Minnesota Vikings, who we'll talk about their playoff proposal and the issues that they're having, and we will talk about that issue in the next video. So until then, this is your man Dylan signing off about the Detroit Lions, and I'll see you in the next video.